Welcome to the Alouettes Flightdeck, the podcast dedicated to Montreal Alouettes football. I'm Cliffy D. You can find me on Twitter at Cliffy D.
And I'm Tim Capper. You can also find me on Twitter, but at Repact. That's Reppact. And this episode of the podcast is presented by our good friends over at SportBuff, where if you use the promo code ALSFlightDeck10 at checkout, you will save 10% off your entire order. So head over to sportbuffshop.com, use the code, save 10%, support local, and save some money on some sweet, sweet merch.
And the Alouettes Flightdeck are all over the World Wide Web and social media. Make sure you check out our archive featuring 7+ seasons of the Alouettes Flightdeck over at www.alouettesflightdeck.ca. Make sure you give us a follow over on Twitter at AlouettesFLDeck. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/AlouettesFlightDeckPod. Check out our Instagram, where we've been doing a lot of live streams with Flight Deck Live. You can find that at Alouettes Flightdeck. You can also find us on Threads at Alouettes Flightdeck. Make sure you check out our YouTube page at youtube.com/Alouettes Flightdeck. And of course, if you want to support us here at the show, you can definitely check out our merchandise store over at teespring.com/stores/AlsFlightDeck.
Bye weeks. You either love them or you hate them, right, Cliff? But when it comes to people like us who do, any type of media, podcasting, live broadcasting, etc., it can be a little tough to, keep up the hype, keep up the momentum when it comes to a bye week, because usually there's usually not that much news coming out, unless you're the Alouettes over the past couple of years, as you've alluded to in previous episodes, where bye weeks are very, very interesting in Montreal, especially for the Alouettes. It's funny though, for this one bye week, it was actually pretty interesting. So I guess I guess everything is staying status quo for the Alouettes, aren't they?
Pretty much. And I even alluded to this in the last episode, is that typically, that's usually when the Alouettes make some sort of monumental change, if you will. And it's funny. It didn't look like it was actually going to happen this week, because just, keeping our eye on things, and it just nothing news-wise, nothing that would suggest that any major news is going to happen, good, bad, or other. And sometimes no news is good news, and I was kind of going with that attitude. I figured, okay, well, I guess truly there isn't much that's going to happen. But this past Sunday, the Alouettes were like, oh, hold on to your hats. We've got some news for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, ask and you shall receive. So sure enough, the Montreal Alouettes did make some moves on Sunday, and moves that I think are going to be a little tough, because it involves the departure of a dearly loved member of the team. But there is the addition of someone who I believe can truly, truly be a game changer for this Alouettes team. And truly, I could not be more excited for this particular transaction.
Yeah, I was going to say, and we may lose an usher, but we gain a quenching beverage. And it's really a bad analogy in putting it that way. But I know. But I was trying to think of something cute. But either way, the Alouettes parted ways with Nick Usher. As media members, we were speculating on what should have been done during the bye week, but it hasn't happened, at least as of yet.
Mm-hmm.
But we did lose Nick Usher. But we ended up signing a gentleman who is a huge name when it comes to being somebody you don't want to be on the opposite side of when you're on the offensive line, or any quarterbacks across the league. Who would have thought, Cliff, that the Alouettes are able to sign free agent, who's been free agent this entire time, by the way? We were able to sign free agent Shawn Lemon. I mean, I'm trying to remember, the Owls have made some big acquisitions before in the past. This one's pretty big, I will admit. I mean, and this didn't happen during free agency either. Again, as I just said, this guy was basically sitting, waiting for somebody to call him and offer him the right opportunity.
Yeah. Definitely, without question. A lot of people were very surprised. Like, how is Shawn Lemon not on a CFL roster? Someone's CFL roster. It was just mind-boggling. But sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is wait for the right opportunity, and eventually someone's going to come calling. And sure enough, Danny Machocha, he picked up the phone and he made it happen. He's bringing in Shawn Lemon, and it's unfortunate that it's coming in at the cost of Nick Usher. It's unfortunate it had to come to that, but I mean, obviously Danny Mac is not afraid to make the moves that may seem a little head scratching to a lot of fans, even disappointing to a lot of fans, because let's face it, Nick Usher was very much a fan favorite, someone that was very much respected on this defensive line and throughout the entire team as well. I mean, Nick Usher was one of those personalities that shone through and was just absolute delight to be around. But these are the moves you have to make if you're trying to compete for and win a Grey Cup. And bringing in a Shawn Lemon is going to be a massive game changer for the Montreal Alouettes defensive line.
Oh yeah, for sure. And when we first saw the news break about Usher, we were like, okay, what's going to be happening? And then obviously there was speculation, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess Usher's remaining salary for 2023 was just enough that was necessary for the Alouettes to be able to sign Shawn Lemon to a contract. And did we ever get any actual notice on how long his contract was for? Was it for the rest of the year? That's one thing I don't remember seeing, is how long his contract was actually for.
No, didn't see that either. And I mean, listen, he's here now, and he's here to the end of the season. So that's, to me, like that's enough. I mean, that's good. I mean, it's kind of funny too, because Shawn Lemon is very close to the Kevin Glenn tour. He's very close to completing it. He has been a member of all the CFL clubs, with the exception of Hamilton and, until recently, Montreal. Mm-hmm. So now he's got one space left on the bingo card.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just trying to find a little.
But you can't have him now, Tiger Cats. You have to wait till next year. Sorry.
No.
These are the rules. We do not make the rules.
He has been an absolute force. I mean, obviously, in just recent years alone, with Calgary and stuff. I mean, it's just crazy how well
Calgary,
this guy is.
BC. I mean, just about everywhere he's gone, he's been a winner and has performed extremely well. I mean, he won a Grey Cup with Calgary in 2014 and with the Toronto Argonauts in 2017. Part of the Mark Trestman led and Jim Pop led Argos team. Mm-hmm. I mean, so again, the guy knows how to win. Period.
Yep, it's true. 11-year veteran, if anybody didn't know. 135 regular season CFL games, 221 defensive tackles, 29 forced fumbles, 1 interception, and 92 career sacks.
That's it. That's the other thing too. 92 career sacks, which means 8 away from 100, and there is a very, very good opportunity for him to be able to set that century club mark with the Alouettes, and that's exciting. That to me is going to be very, very fun to see.
Yep, and just released today, the Alouettes did have their first practice post practice scrum, and Shawn was interviewed, and I know Danny Mac was asked about him too. But he seems to be ready to go, and obviously once the depth chart comes out on Saturday, come on, it shouldn't be a surprise. It would be a surprise if he wasn't listed on the starting lineup.
Yeah, and you have to believe he's been staying in shape. He's been basically ready to go. So I would be very surprised not to see him in the lineup this coming Sunday against Calgary. And let's not forget Calgary, where he's had arguably most of his success. You got to believe, like, they decided that they didn't want him and let him go to free agency and let him, just let him go, because let's not forget, he was also the Western nominee for most outstanding defensive player last year.
Mm-hmm.
You think that alone, and just his 2022 season as an All-Star season, and had some amazing stats. Like, you think that would have been enough for him to, stick around in Calgary, but they're like, no, not happening. So, God only knows why, but their loss is essentially our gain. So,
yep.
Yeah, I have to believe, football is professional. It's professional. There's no hard feelings. There's nothing like that. And they always say that it's not personal, but I got a feeling that Shawn Lemon is going to be taking a look at this Calgary team that basically let him walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to believe he at least wants to be able to show up and say, "Listen, y'all made a mistake. Let me go. Now you're going to pay."
Yeah, exactly. By the way, and just to at least complete it. The Owls did also sign other 2 defensive linemen, which you were very surprised about, considering how many defensive linemen and backs we just happened to gain in 2 days. Marcus Valdez and then we got also offensive lineman Josh Donovan, who I think he had a cup of coffee with in the IFL, the Inter Football League, and Valdez. So it's they did something during the during the bye week for sure, man. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to have Shawn on our side, and I'm curious to see how much trouble he can cause.
Yeah, and that's the thing is with Shawn Lemon. Yeah, he's got a bit of a reputation. He can be a bit of a hothead, and for some a little bit difficult to work with. But truly, I think if you let him cook, let him do his thing, he's going to do great things. And I have to believe this Alouettes team is going to let him do that. Like Greg Quick, the defensive line coach, Corby Irvin, the defensive line coach for the Alouettes, he's got to be licking his chops. He's got to be so excited to have someone like Lemon on this line, along with guys like Lawal Ugalak, Armando Sewell. My God, I mean, this is going to be fun. This is going to be fun to watch, and it's so interesting. Like, I didn't think there was any problems with the defensive line as it stood. We've had our theories of areas where the Alouettes could use improvement. Not once did it cross my mind that defensive line could have been an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So I truly think this is just a matter of the rich getting richer, because I definitely think this defensive line can hang with just about anybody and can cause real havoc. And now you throw a Shawn Lemon in the mix. Holy cow. That is going to be so exciting to watch. So once again, like I am excited. I am excited to see what Shawn Lemon can do as a member of this Alouettes team. That veteran presence that's going to be tremendous for a lot of the younger members of this D-line. It's going to be so much fun to watch. And truly, I cannot wait for Sunday to see the new Agent Zero in action.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, we at least have to comment on it. I wanted to ask you about it is how quick do you think it's going to be until Nick Usher gets picked up? Because, I mean, he made a name for himself in Montreal for sure.
He did, and also in Edmonton as well, where that's where people first got to know who Nick Usher was. So, truthfully, I'm actually surprised he hasn't been picked up by somebody already. But could just be a matter of time. Could just be waiting for injuries or whatnot. But put it this way: Nick Usher will not be out of work long. I can guarantee you that. He is just too good of a guy, too good of a player. He can definitely help any team. Any team that needs help on the defensive line would be foolish not to enlist Nick Usher's services.
No, I completely agree with you, dude. I really do. It should be. It's going to be fun. It's going to be. I think what we're understanding is that Jagarrett Davis won't be playing this week for Calgary in that recent trade. So should be. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, no, but again, another great move for the Calgary Stampeders to get Jagarrett Davis, if only because, and this is incredible, every year he's been in the CFL. This is his 7th season. Every year that he's played in the CFL, Jagarrett Davis has appeared in the Grey Cup. Hasn't always won it. He's won 2 out of his 6 tries. But safe to say, if Jagarrett Davis is on your team, you're going to be in the Grey Cup. So Calgary, congratulations. I know things may not be looking great for you now. I know it's hard to believe considering how BC and Winnipeg are still considered the top tier teams in the West. But you know what? It doesn't matter how you get there, but somehow, some way, as long as Jaguar Davis is on your team, you are going to the Grey Cup. That's just the facts. I mean, that's just how it is. So I don't know how you're going to do it, but somehow you are going to be part of the Grey Cup, Calgary.
Yeah. We're going to be going over, obviously, our thoughts on the upcoming game between the Owls and the Stampeders, and some very interesting look at the names that are popping up on the I guess we could say the practice list, the injured list, or the practice, whatever you want to call it. But before that, Cliff, right, we're going to have to set up this game, and we have a guy who's been on the show before who's going to help us do just that, right?
Absolutely. We're very excited. We've asked Danny Austin to join us, and he was very gracious in order for him to do so. Just to talk about things that are going on in Calgary right now, because, we see what's going on as far as, some of the growing pains that they're going through. So we want to talk to Danny about that, talk to him about pretty much everything Stampeders and Calgary itself right now. So I'm very excited to have him on. So without further ado, let's go to the interview where we are speaking with the one, the only Danny Austin. And joining us this week on the flight deck is a man we've had on the show before. Always a pleasure to talk to him, all the way from Calgary, Alberta, to preview the game Sunday versus the Stampeders. We are joined once again by Danny Austin. Danny, welcome back to the Alouettes Flightdeck.
Man, thanks for having me. It's great to be chatting with you guys. I'm excited. Montreal, Calgary have not played each other for a long time, so this feels a little unusual, but looking forward to it.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about it. I think this is the first time Calgary's been back to Montreal since, I want to say 2019.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, obviously, no 2020 season, and I know I haven't been there for the last couple of years, which bums me out because, like any person with good taste, I love the city of Montreal and would love an annual trip there. But yeah, haven't gotten those in a while. So it's been a little while. Calgary historically plays absolutely terribly in Montreal, which is probably not good for Stamps fans, given that this team desperately needs a win. But here we are.
And incidentally, Calgary's been a very welcoming host at McMahon Stadium for opposing teams because the Stamps have yet to win a game at McMahon Stadium this year. Can you explain what's up with that?
Yeah, I mean, the Stamps are the weirdest teams right now because, no, they haven't. Also, 2 of those games went to overtime. They've been hard-fought games. It's so weird. I was trying to describe this to a friend today, and it's as long as the Stampeders aren't massively screwing up, they actually look pretty good. It's just that they massively screw up a bunch. 9 plays out of 10, you're like, oh, these guys look great, and then they just do something that just blows your mind, and you're like, how did you not knock down a Hail Mary pass? How did you allow Mario Alford to run back 2 kick return touchdowns? It's just that type of thing. There's just these big glaring mistakes that are costing them. And look, the offense took a while to get going here. That's what really happened this season. Just Jake Mayer and his receivers were not on the same page. There were a bunch of injuries that didn't help. But the Stampeders ultimately, they just didn't look good at all for the first couple of weeks. And I'd argue they looked better. It's just nothing's coming together. And I mean, we've all followed or covered or cheered for teams like that, where you're just like, I can see it. I can see what needs to happen. You guys don't look like you're that far off, but it's not happening. And that's sort of where I would say the Stampeders are right now.
One thing I'm curious to know about is, obviously the Stampeders have obviously a hell of a pedigree in the CFL and how well they've been doing over the past decade plus. But one minor change to the front office this year, and it seems that things aren't going their way. Do you tend as a reporter to go look back and say, well, what if that change had not been made in the front offices of the organization this year?
You're saying Dave becoming GM?
Yeah.
Because that's over. Yeah, I don't. To be honest, I don't think that's really been a factor. Like Dave and Hufnagel were so involved in each other's jobs, like they're from the start, and Dave's not doing the scouting. He's not out on the road, watching university football, trying to figure out these guys. I like this team the Stampeders have. That's the truth. There are not many holes in this roster. It's just execution right now. And the reality is, and this is probably a thing that's unique to Calgary, where you did sort of have the Flutie to Garcia to Dickinson to Burris to Bo Levi Mitchell, like that transition at quarterbacks where they had sort of elite quarterback after elite quarterback. I think it's more about that. They're dealing with a young quarterback where there's growing pains. So you're really seeing the regression. But I don't, for me, no, I'm not at all worried about Dickinson being able to be the GM and head coach. It's so collaborative. I don't think that there is a market in the CFL or a team in the CFL that has a guy like Pat Delmonico, that has Mark Killam. These guys are all capable of taking on a huge amount of responsibility in the coaching. And I do think, I don't personally think there's an issue there.
Okay.
Do you think eventually Dickinson does step back and say, no, I'm just going to be the GM and I'm going to let whomever be the head coach of the Stampeders, maybe as early as next season?
Eventually, I see that happening. It probably has to happen. I think Dave's got a lot of work that he wants to get done. I mean, the question that people always ask me is, like, if Mark Killam, is just completely set on getting a head coaching job, are you really going to let him walk? Maybe Dave could step back and give Killam that opportunity, but I just don't see it happening. For right now, I think Dave, he's in this dual role. You still have Hufnagel around the building who you can bounce ideas off and sort of learn from. So for me, I just, like I said, and maybe this is bad reporting, but for me, so much of it has been execution, not necessarily game planning for the Stamps season. So I don't see there being a huge structural issue with the way that the team is run or coached, personally. Again, they're 2 plays away from being 4-2 and not 2-4. There were 2 overtime games that came down to the wire. So I'm not. Look, I'm doing it with the Bombers. Anything that the Bombers do wrong, I'm celebrating their demise as if it's like the end of days. I understand why people want to do that for Calgary. I don't believe it personally. I wish I could come in and say they got to tear it all down. I just don't believe it.
Well, it's kind of like the New England Patriots. Like, for years, they were the model franchise. They had the quarterback, the coach, everything. And now we're starting to see, okay, maybe, their demise, so to speak, or maybe they're just not quite where they used to be. And I guess one can't help but wonder if maybe that's the same thing with Calgary after being so successful for so long. And now you're starting to see, I won't say necessarily chinks in the armor, but you're starting to see that, oh, they are human after all.
I mean, look, they haven't won a playoff game since 2018. This team hasn't actually been the sort of elite powerhouse team in the CFL for 5 years now. That's just the reality. I mean, it's been Winnipeg. We all still have assumed that every season the Stamps would get hot and sort of be a force in the playoffs, but they haven't been. There's no right argument there. It's fact. So, there's been a decline. This is not the same team that in the early 2000s was absolutely dominating everybody. But that's not where they're at. And this is a team that I think realistically, the best you can hope for right now, if we look at it honestly, is that they outlast the Riders and get third in the West. I don't think they have a hope the way that they're playing right now in catching Winnipeg or BC. I know it's early, but I think this Montreal game is brutal. It's a really, 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 really tough challenge. And then they have Toronto. I don't know if the order here, but it's either BC, Winnipeg, or Winnipeg, BC. So let's just say Toronto, Winnipeg, BC, Toronto again. That's all before Labor Day. This team could be in real trouble come Labor Day. It's just the nice thing is they get to play Edmonton twice at Labor Day.
Well, the one thing that will kind of work in Calgary's favor is the acquisition today of Jaguar Davis. I mean, the guy that has played his entire career in a Grey Cup game every year. So, I mean, that's got to be a hope for Calgary fans, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Jaguar Davis is an elite defensive end in the CFL. Has been for coming up on 7 or 8 years now. No question there. Now, that's an addition in the sense that he's stepping in, but like they also lost James Waters, who I believe tore his bicep. That's what I kind of reported last night. I can pretty much guarantee you that there were calls to Shawn Lemon trying to get him not to go to Montreal. They needed a defensive end there, and Jaguar Davis is the one that got. It's a great addition. Obviously played here, won a Grey Cup in 2018, knows the system. But you're also like, that's basically a replacement for Rodgers. It's not, I don't know how to say this, but like it's not an addition so much as it is not patching a subtraction. Yeah, it's patching a hole right now. Yeah. But it's a good, awfully good player to be able to patch a hole with.
All right. With this offense right now, because I mean, especially after that barn burner of a game against Ottawa going into overtime, I mean, it seems like there's moments where Jake Maier can just turn it on and does absolutely outstanding things, and then there's some plays where he makes where just you're left scratching your head. So like, do you ever wonder do Calgary fans wonder will the real Jake Maier please stand up?
I mean, they yell at me better than my email. Every day I wake up to 4 emails where I'm like, guys, I'm not the coach. Calgary fans are very impatient with Jake right now. I think he's been considerably better his last 2 games. Yeah, the turnovers are just an issue, right? And there are those tosses where you just wonder what's happening. And it's weird. Until basically the West semifinal last year, I didn't think we had these questions. Like, I'm being real. I really, really thought Jake Maier looked like he was going to be a stud. He was going to be a star quarterback in this league. And then in the West semifinal against the Lions, he really underperformed. And I think it struck his confidence a little bit. And I think it's just taken some time to build that back and to build those connections with the receivers. And, they lost Malik Henry. Malik Henry was their top receiver last year. Yes, they replaced him with Mark and Michelle, who was excellent. But, this is going to take some patience. Jake Maier is not going to be Doug Flutie. Certainly he's not going to be Doug Flutie next week in Montreal. It's going to take some time. You're building, you're improving. And that just may be something that not just Calgary fans, but CFL fans have to get used to a little bit. That may just be these guys aren't going to be good great in week 1. You got to build them. You got to be patient. You got to take the ups with the downs a little bit.
I'm trying to remember the last time that the Stamps actually had a quarterback this, I don't want to say green because he's had a hell of a career so far. I mean, but when was the last time that the Stamps really had a quarterback this green as their starter?
And maybe Drew Tate.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
That would be it.
Yeah.
Drew Tate didn't last long, but because Bo was there, Bo was basically waiting in the wings and took over. But yeah, and really, I mean, Marcus. Well, there are the weird years where Donegan was the head coach. That just we don't acknowledge happened here in Calgary. But beyond that, I mean, it's honestly you go back to the Flutie years, and it's been uninterrupted in a lot of ways. It's pretty amazing.
All right, talk to me about Tommy Lee Lewis. I don't know where Calgary found this guy, but my goodness, this guy is exciting to watch.
Who did you say? Sorry,
Tommy Lee Lewis.
I apologize, I missed that. Yeah, Tommy Lee Lewis. I mean, they found him in the NFL. It's weird. Tommy Lee Lewis is one of those guys who was on their negotiation list for at least 5 years. He always just kind of knew that they thought that he would eventually come up. And then he got here, hurt his hamstring in training camp, so we still had to wait even longer. And then finally he got in, and we were like, oh yeah, this is what they were waiting for. I mean, his foot speed is just unbelievable. It's not, it completely separates him. And it was just probably a little bit undersized for the NFL. But other than that, he's got the skill set. I still think we're waiting for him to really, really break out. But it's close. And when you have that speed combined with Mark and Michelle, combined with Reggie Bagleton sort of coming across the middle, and Trey Adams-Dukes, who I've been really impressed with as well. I actually like this receiving core. It's not necessarily the superstar names, but I like that combination of sort of speed and power in the middle.
No, I look at him and while I don't think Mario Alford or Chandler Worthy are going to have any sleepless nights, this is definitely someone that definitely is going to command some attention, especially in the return game. He definitely has been able to break a few off and has definitely looks like he's come as advertised for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's one of the guys to watch, and I'm not going to compare him to, the other top returners. I think returning is a combination of, being really good at it and sometimes you get lucky, and the Stampeders just decide not to tackle twice against the Riders. And you and I probably could have busted through some of those holes. So, yeah, but Tommy Lewis, 100%. You couldn't be more right. He's super exciting. Good. I think he's going to get to the league. I think he's going to be great for the Stampeders as an organization and the guy that they can market around for a little bit.
All right, now let's talk quickly about this game on Sunday. I would say it's a must-win for both teams because Montreal on a 3-game losing skid, although not looking terrible in losing, honestly, whereas Calgary just seems I don't want to say down on their luck necessarily, but I mean, like they, as you said, they fought in some pretty tough battles over the past couple of weeks. I mean, how important is this game right now for Calgary?
It could not be more important. Like literally, again, as I mentioned, that August schedule, like they have Toronto twice, BC, and Winnipeg. The Stamps really expected to beat Ottawa this week. They're 2-4. You go 2-5 with that stretch of 4 games coming up. It doesn't take a genius. Even the geniuses of Genius Sports could probably figure out that that's a pretty bad spot to be in. This is honestly as far as the end of July games go in the CFL, this is as must win as it gets for the Stampeders. They absolutely need to figure out a way to pull this out. Because you want to be 500 at Labor Day. That's the goal. And they're not going to be if they lose this game. That's just there's no argument there. You have 3 games under 500 with the 4 games that you have coming up. It's not happening. So it doesn't matter if you have Edmonton twice. If you want even a sniff at a home playoff game or 3rd place, you better win. And the reality is you also better be beating the Eastern teams because you want to at least keep the possibility of a crossover too, right? So, yeah, this is a huge, huge, huge game.
Yeah, I would say for Montreal as well, they want to get off the schneid, being down, losing 3 games in a row. I don't think they see Calgary as necessarily beatable so much as they know that they can hang, I think, with just about any team in the league. And they probably have to look at Calgary and say, okay, this is a team that's going to be motivated as well, especially after losing to Ottawa. And again, Montreal has to keep pace with Ottawa too.
I'm not going to get offended. You can say that they look beatable. They do look beatable. They are beatable. They're getting beat. If I was Montreal playing at home right now, I would have absolutely no fear. I would be going in. I'd be being aggressive. I'd be saying, all right, this offense makes mistakes. Let's try to throw some looks that are going to confuse Jake Mayer's eyes, and then keep the offense on the field and tire out a defense that has looked vulnerable at the end of games while also looking very good at the beginning. You just got to keep them on the field as much as possible. And I think if Montreal does that, they have every reason to feel confident. But we don't need to sugarcoat it. The Stampeders team is beatable. They are. They are not the Bo Levi Mitchell 2017 Stampeders.
No, I was going to say they're not your daddy's Stampeders anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah, and they might get back there. There's lots of young pieces, and good improving pieces. But yeah, they're not there right there. They're not there right now.
That's the thing. It feels like, okay, there's 3 tiers right now. I mean, you've got Toronto and everybody else in the middle, and then Edmonton. So, I mean, as long as you're in that middle group, you got a chance.
Yeah, I think you're exaggerating. I think BC and Winnipeg are still a little bit different from the other teams sort of in the middle there. But yeah, I think we have to be honest that Toronto is right now. I mean, they deserve to be considered the best team in the league. And Edmonton deserves to be thrown out of the league and forced to play in Canada West next season or something. They are awful, but you're right. I mean, I do think BC is a cut above. And I think I just can't discount the Bombers. So I still have that sort of first tier with those 3 teams. But yeah, in the middle, it's fun. There's parity. I mean, Stampeders fans can be frustrated, but these games are going to overtime. They're exciting. It just sucks to lose exciting games.
Well, that's it. Somebody has to win. Somebody has to lose, unless it ties.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to a fun, exciting game on Sunday evening. That's another thing, too. First Sunday evening game at Percival Molson Stadium in, I want to say, at least a decade. I think it's been at least a decade since there was Sunday night football in Montreal. So I think it's going to be an interesting game. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it afterwards. It's definitely going to be, as we said, it's a must-win game for both teams, and I really think it's going to come down to who wants just that much more.
Yeah, and then it comes down to execution, and I'm very curious to see. I'm guarding my tongue here, but I will say that I know how motivated Shawn Lemon is. Shawn Lemon is going to do everything in his power to get 30 sacks in one game against these Stampeders. So, that adds a list. So there's lots to like here. I'm super excited. It's going to be a great game.
Yeah, I think Shawn Lemon, even though he's probably got himself an apartment now here in Montreal, I think he'd still like to be very much living in the Stampeders' head rent-free. So, yeah. You could have two residences, right?
He'll be. I mean, that guy's probably got houses in every city in the country, but he's honestly, he's the best dude. So I'm looking forward to seeing him play. It's good to have him back in the league.
100%. Okay, no. Danny, we know you've been starting with the podcast, the Live from 55 podcast, doing great stuff with that. If fans want to check you out, besides on Twitter, besides the post media, how do our listeners get in touch with you and get to see everything that you're doing here for the CFL?
I mean, it is mostly Twitter. Like, I promise you, I'm not joining Threads. So, yeah, I mostly just post my stuff on Twitter. I'm in all the post media papers for now. And, Live from the 55 is on YouTube, Apple. We're doing, similar stuff what you guys are doing. We're just trying to kind of bring in some of the media guys who, maybe aren't on TSN, but are super fun and just kind of have a good time with it. Bring some players on when we can. Kind of talk CFL because we need more of this. It's great that you guys are doing it. Hopefully people enjoy what I'm doing. So, that's kind of it. But, yeah, Danny Austin _9 on Twitter. You're not going to see me on Threads. You're not going to see me on whatever the blue sky is. I'll just be on Twitter hanging out until it dies.
No TikTok?
No.
Yeah, us neither. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram, but that's just for friends. That's not a professional thing. So I'm terrible at promoting my work. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
All right, well, let me do it then for you, Danny. Everybody, go check out Danny Austin. He's doing the thing. He's doing great stuff out in Calgary. Once again, Danny, thank you so much for joining us here on the Flight Deck. Looking forward to a great game on Sunday. And just keep doing what you're doing, man. We love it.
I appreciate you guys, man. I'll come on anytime you need me. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Been on the show before. I love the way that this guy, he's such a passionate dude. There's a lot of stuff that we talked about before the interview itself. It's like we're on the same wavelength on quite a few things league wide, but also, I mean, you can tell the dude is very passionate and he knows this Calgary Stampeders football.
100%. And so thankful that I was actually worried earlier this year that Post Media was kind of maybe thinking about getting away from Canadian football, which, their thought was, okay, well, let's put Danny on the Calgary Flames beat. And he did an outstanding job with that. To actually, how good is he? Is that he makes Montrealers care about what the Calgary Flames are doing, or at least taking an interest in what they're doing. Mm-hmm. That just speaks to the work that he does. And I was greatly relieved to see that. No, I'm not giving up CFL. Are you kidding me? No, I'm still covering the Stampeders. Don't get it twisted. So that was a relief because, I mean, Danny's an absolute gem and definitely is a must follow, especially if you're a Calgary fan. I mean, as you said, he is very much in the team. He definitely understands what's going on, and it was so great for him to shed a little bit of light as to what we've been seeing so far in 2023 from Calgary. Danny, once again, thank you for everything, and looking forward to your thoughts on this game on Sunday afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. We mentioned it before the interview itself, Cliff, that and it's something I actually sent I messaged you. I sent a text to you earlier in the day after seeing this, and it's kind of mind-blowing because, as you have said multiple times, a lot of people within the CFL thought that, that our wide receiver core was going to be garbage and that we were just a team in disarray, and it couldn't be farther than the truth. But now, and even if this team is 2-3, I mean, just again, look who we have played over the last 3 games, and we've stuck with them. We've been in 2 of the 3 games, but we happen to lose all 3. But some of these guys that we saw at practice, that we saw at camp, why isn't this person playing? Why isn't this person playing? How is this person hurt, et cetera, right? And then we see today's report the injury report when it came to, I guess we could say, day 2 of practice for the Alouettes. And dude, if you and I as Alouette fans and supporters are excited, oh man, just wait until you folks hear what we saw. So, this is what we found out today, Cliff. I want your thoughts on this. First, we know what happened the last game with Deontay Evans. Now we know it was a leg issue. Full practice. That's cool, right? Glad to have another piece of the defense back in place.
A key piece,
yes.
No less.
Brock Gowanlock, shoulder. Full practice both days so far this week. That is huge on the defensive line.
Oh, yeah. And as I said earlier, yes, this defensive line is extremely talented as it sits right now. But if you're able to throw a Brock Gowanlock back into the mix, I said it before and I'll say it again, the rich get richer. And the opposing teams are going to have to, if they don't know who Brock Gowanlock is, they're going to learn pretty damn quick.
Yeah, exactly. Shawn Jamison still is limited, but obviously everybody remembers what happened last year. So Raheem Wilson, full practice on Wednesday.
Another one of those, as I was talking about, we were concerned about what was going on with the secondary, but with Raheem the Dream back practicing, that will make you sit up and take notice. And believe me, that is very much a good thing to hear. To hear Raheem Wilson back practicing, that's got anyone who's had concerns like we have about the secondary.
Yeah,
if he can get into this game, start getting back into game shape, and get back in this lineup, oh boy, I think that's going to solve a lot of the problems that were there.
Exactly. Now, these two next players could easily be, as we saw with Courtney Davis and with Tyler Snead, these two other players could be an absolute game changer, and it's going to be really interesting to see how if both these guys are ready to go, how the Alouettes are going to shuffle their roster. Man, Greg Ellingson, which we now know he was having a knee issue, full practice on Wednesday. Tyson Philpott, we know it was a hammy, full practice on Tuesday and Wednesday. We are going to have potentially two more targets for Cody Fajardo to throw at come Sunday.
And how excited is Fajardo at thinking of that? I mean, if there was any sort of concern or trust about the receiving core this year, I think a lot of it may have been blown out of proportion, especially after seeing how well Austin Mack has taken to the Canadian game. The excitement that we saw out of Tyler Snead, the 3-touchdown performance against the Toronto Argonauts. Courtney Davis, who was making outstanding catches in training camp, throughout practice, and yes, even in actual game action. Now you're going to add Tyson Philpott and Greg Ellingson into this mix as well, in addition to guys like Hergy Mayala, Keon Julian Grant, and so forth. I mean, this is a good problem to have. You almost don't want to sit any of them, but you kind of have to. So this is going to be very, very interesting. And essentially, Cody's going to put these guys to work. He has to. He's got to find a way to stretch the field as much as possible. I mean, he's been able to throw some pretty decent bombs earlier this year, and truthfully, he's got to make plays like that happen on a more frequent basis. And knowing that he's got reliable hands like Ellingson and Philpott, in addition to the guys that are already in this lineup, I mean, this is a good problem to have. I mean, just it sucks that invariably at least one or two of these guys are going to have to unfortunately sit on the bench. But man, what a good problem to have. What a good concern for this offense is, okay, who's going to get out there and give us our best chance of making a highlight reel touchdown catch? I'll tell you what, I mean, this is where the competition aspect of things comes into play. This is where you see who you truly have. And I tell you what, it's not so cut and dry. I mean, it's great that Ellingson and Philpott are back, but I mean, they're not just going to waltz back into the lineup like nothing happened. I mean, they're going to have to prove that they can hang with with this group as well. So it's going to make for a very, very interesting couple of days leading up into Sunday's game.
No kidding. I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm looking at probably one of those two will probably be a single game scratch. That's just my guess here, Cliff, based on what we've seen with the roster so far and how I don't envy Denny Mac at all with them trying to figure out how they're going to put this thing together. Because it's not going to be easy, dude. You know, you got what Tyler's done recently, what Courtney Davis has done recently. I mean, it's, you know.
Yeah, how do you bench the guy that scored 3 tutties against the defending Grey Cup champions?
Yeah, the guy that tied the Alouettes team record for most touchdowns in a single game. I agree with you, dude. I agree. Yeah. That's going to be tough.
But at the same time, how do you tell a Tyson Philpott, no, Mr. Outstanding Rookie nominee, no, you can't play this week. We got some other rookie that's playing. Like, it doesn't work that way. I mean, yeah, you don't want to necessarily lose your spot due to injury, but I mean, like, definitely you know what you have with Tyson Philpott, so you cannot, just leave him off to the side so easily. So it's going to be interesting. I think the next couple of days are really going to tell the tale. And man, I mean, as I said, this is a good problem to have for the Montreal Alouettes.
Yep, no, I completely agree with you, dude. Again, keep track of the once we get it, we'll be putting it out on all of our socials. So stay tuned for that depth chart, because that's going to be you. That's going to be something you want to get your eyeballs on for sure, for sure, and see what this makeup of this team is going to be like for the game versus Calgary. So,
yeah, which suddenly feels like a long, long ways away. But I mean, we've been waiting so long for Alouettes football to come back, and we're just excited. We're just ready to see some football again, and to see it on a weekly basis as we've come to expect.
Mm-hmm. So the Alouettes are going to be playing on Sunday Night Football. The Owls in their history, Cliff, they've played 150 regular season games on Sundays, and this will be their first Sunday home game in the regular season since October 28th, 2018. But it's their first Sunday night home game since 2011 versus Saskatchewan. And, everybody remembers Alouettes football usually. It's usually, it used to be a weekend 1:00 tradition, right? For Sunday. But with the CFL changes this year, they're switching some things out, and they're doing the Sunday night games. It's only going to be their 6th ever, Cliff, Sunday night regular season game at home in their team history.
Yeah, it's crazy because you kind of think about the Alouettes for Sundays, but like Sunday afternoon, as in like 1:00 on Sunday.
Yep.
Typically after Labor Day, but still, that is something you do tend to associate with the Montreal Alouettes. Like during the regular season before Labor Day is something it doesn't quite compute. But I mean, people seem to love the idea of being able to have a game on Thursday, game on Friday, game on Saturday, game on Sunday, and I mean, truthfully, I'll take a Sunday night game over a Thursday night game, quite frankly. So,
oh yeah, for sure. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the crowd is like for this game. So, what are your thoughts going into this game? Obviously, the Owls aren't, when it comes to coming back off of games off of a bye. The Owls, they're about a 500 team. But I mean, you got two teams coming in who are going to be very pissed off and angry. How Calgary lost this past week, even though Jake Mayer had a monster game at quarterback. The Owls losing 3 straight. They're still in the thick of things, obviously, to host a playoff game. Funny to say that only in week 5, after only five games played, but still, they have a lot to prove coming in this week, and obviously, they want to get this win, get back to the winning ways. Get back to 500 and get even ever so closer if they can to the Toronto Argonauts.
Yeah, and also too with that thrilling overtime win by the Red Blacks. The Red Blacks have actually surpassed the Alouettes. They're now 3-3 on the season, whereas Montreal is 2-3. Like they were sitting ducks, so they obviously couldn't do anything about it. But I mean, now you got it's one thing to try and keep pace with Toronto, who's starting to creep away with the division so far, having not lost a game, and truthfully, I'm not sure when they're going to lose a game, just with the way their schedule is lining up over the next couple of weeks. But I mean, Montreal definitely. I won't call this necessarily a must-win game, but it's a game it would be in their best advantage to win this game. Same thing for Calgary too, because like you said, I'm sure they felt they should have won that game against the Red Blacks, and they should have won that game, the other overtime game at McMahon Stadium against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They probably felt they should have won that game too.
Mm-hmm.
This team could easily be 4-2 versus 2-4. We talk about it all the time. Sometimes it's just a matter of a bounce here, a bounce there, and your entire fortune changes completely. And I think Calgary does not want to go 2-5, because if they do, it's a slippery slope. And Montreal doesn't want to be losing 4 games in a row either. So I mean, this truly is going to be a very crucial game. It's early still, but it's very much a crucial game for both of these teams. They both have something to prove. They both want to, prove that they aren't who people seem to be thinking they are. Truthfully, I'm expecting this to be a really good game, and it'll be curious to see who wants it just that much more to get the W.
Yeah, for sure, and it's. I've said it. I think for the past couple of years. There's so much. By the way, this year there's so much parity in the CFL. The Owls getting a win would put the Eastern Division at a current pace of potentially. You know where I'm going with this. I said it last year. I won't say it this year, but I think everybody knows where I'm going with this. So it's very possible.
Talking about the C word, that isn't the C word, but
yes, yeah, that other C word. Yeah,
and again, it sounds crazy to think, but I mean, it's not so impossible to consider. I think a lot of people were thinking even as early as 2 weeks ago, like, okay, well, it's definitely going to be Toronto and Montreal, and see who gets that last playoff spot. Maybe the West does cross over and takes it, because Ottawa and Hamilton, well, their season's over. I'm like, well, Ottawa definitely didn't get the memo, and now that Bo Levi Mitchell is back practicing with the Tiger Cats, I mean, if there's anyone that has something to prove, it's definitely Bo Levi.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question about that. But I mean, Montreal has to take a look at this game and the next couple of games, and they really, really got to get it together. They cannot afford to let things slide. I mean, you got to start posting W's. That's all there is to it. Like, this 3-game slide, not a backbreaker by any stretch, but at the same time, you don't want it going to 4 and 5 and so on.
Yeah.
Like, that really is what it comes down to with both of these teams, is they've got a lot to prove already. And there's a lot of naysayers. Like, there's a lot of people that think Calgary, okay, finally, after years of consistent excellence year in and year out, they're finally falling off the face of the earth. Montreal, a lot of people didn't expect a whole lot of right off the bat. They came in hot, winning their first 2 games, and then kind of, started going down a little bit. And even though they were tightly contested affairs, like 2 of the 3 games were fairly tightly contested, they're still losses. And now everybody's back to sleeping on the Alouettes. And that could be just how this team likes it. But you know what? The only way that sleeping on the Alouettes works is if you prove everybody wrong and you go out and win.
Yep.
If you're just going to keep on losing, then you're just validating what everybody's feeling. So it really is, the onus really is on both of these teams to find a way to win. And I think that's just going to translate for us in the stands. We're going to see a very entertaining football game. I really think these two teams are going to show up and they're going to put on a show. Simply put, I mean, it won't be as exciting as the Cirque du Soleil show. It will be at halftime, but we may see some acrobatics. Well, we'll probably see some clowns too, but that's just how it is, right?
That's good. Very good, Cliffy. I like that. For those who wanting to know, practice this week is being basically over. Is being concentrated over at the Olympic Stadium on the annex field in between the Big O and Saputo. So Thursday and Friday at 11:20 a.m. Check the team's webpage for any changes. If you're going to be at practice on Friday, I'm potentially going to be there, so come say hey. Have any questions or comments or concerns about the show itself, or just want to chime in and let us know something, you can email us directly at tim.capper@alouettesflightdeck.ca or Cliff at cliffyd.pine at alouettesflightdeck.ca. Owls are I think for the first time this year, Cliff, I think they are a favorite. They're a 2.5-point favorite over the Stampeders with an over-under of 47.
They get the hometown bump.
Yep. Again, as I said earlier, I'm just curious to know, see what this crowd's going to be like for a Sunday night game. Now, mind you, it is during the infamous construction holiday here in Quebec. People need to show up anyways. They should be anyways. You're not at work. You don't got to work the next day.
Yeah, I mean.
So, and the weather seems to be pretty good, so I can't complain. So
yeah, that's going to be key. I mean, it's once again, the Alouettes are planning to put on a spectacular show, both with the football team and off the field as well. I'm very curious to see what the whole Cirque du Soleil production is going to be like. I don't think it's ever been truly attempted in a football stadium, so I'm definitely intrigued to see that. Mm-hmm. Aside from that, though, I mean, as I said, these are two, I'd say, evenly matched football teams. Both have their positives when it comes to offense, defense. Both, unfortunately, have their negatives when it comes to offense, defense. Special teams, I think both teams are on point, 100%. Again, this is going to be a very exciting game, I think. I think it's going to be a very tightly contested affair. I don't see it being a blowout. To me, I just think it's going to come down to who wants it more. Who can handle their business better, who's going to show up ready to win. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is that mentality of being ready to win and doing what it takes to win. I know typically Calgary has kind of looked at this game as like a business trip, or even a working vacation, really, because they have not historically they have not played very well at Percival Molson Stadium. But I think that was more the old regime versus the team that's here this year. And let's not forget, Calgary has not been at Percival Molson Stadium for the past 4 years. So I think that sentiment of them coming in, like that mindset, I don't think that exists anymore. I think it'll be completely different. I think we're going to see players coming in and just treating this like a business trip, treating it like, okay, we've got a job to do. We've got to go out and win. And that's all there is to it. I don't think there's going to be too many, crazy Saturday night parties or anything like that. It'd be awesome if Calgary decided they wanted to do that. They wanted to take in the city and let the vices, if you will, take over. But I just don't see that happening. I think they want it bad enough that they're going to treat this like a job, do your job. And I think they're going to give Montreal a good run for its money. But truthfully, I think this is the kind of game that Montreal wants, because, as I've said, they've got a lot to prove. They want to prove to the doubters, to the haters, that they are who they say they are. They are who they've been hyping themselves up to be from day one of training camp. And the best way to do that, just go out there and let it rip. I mean, that's what this team does so well. And I'm looking forward truly to some very exciting football. And that's really what it comes down to, Tim, is that this team has to perform. And I think they will. I think they're going to show up Sunday night, and they're going to put on a show that is going to leave everybody excited and wanting for more.
Exactly. Looking forward to it, dude. Really, really am. If you happen to see us at the stadium, come and say hey. We are over in Section Y1. We're always happy to see and talk with our fans. But we're looking forward to Sunday night football. That's a weird thing to say, Cliff. Sunday night football. But we will...
Especially in Canada. I mean, Sunday night football is, of course, an institution down in the States. But in Canada, it's still something that we're just taking a little getting used to. So,
yeah.
It'll be interesting. I mean, and again, if this game is not a sellout and it doesn't work, then okay, well, at least they tried it, right? So
exactly.
Again, I can't reiterate enough that I am so thankful the Alouettes do not host any Thursday night games, because whatever trepidation or worries we have about Sunday night, they were doubled, if not tripled, when it came to the Thursday night football. So props to the Alouettes for not having a Thursday night game. I mean, they'll be playing a Thursday night game, but on the road. But to not have to worry about Thursday night Alouettes football at Percival Wilson Stadium is so nice.
Yeah, I agree.
It really is.
Yeah. So we'll hopefully see you guys at the game. If not, we will speak to you guys for Flight Deck Live. And if not, we will catch you on the flip side for our next podcast next week. So I look forward to seeing you then. So for everybody here at the Alouettes Flight Deck, for Cliffy D, I'm Tim Capper. We're on Final Approach.